Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for the opportunity given to us so that we can present our research paper entitled Adult Learners' Perception on English Communication Skills for Civil Servants Online Training. First of all, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Anastasia Sastri Kirana, and I am from the National Institute of Public Administration, or NIPA, and I am here with my colleague, Mr. Wahyu Pramudita, who works at the same institution and at the same work unit as I do. I would like to divide this presentation into three parts. The first is the background of this study and an overview of the theories that we were using when conducting this study. The second is the methodology, and the third is the research findings, the implication, and the conclusion. So all civil servants have the right to develop their competence. And when they want to develop their competence, they can choose either formal education or training. If they choose training, the training can be in any forms. For example, technical, functional, or social cultural training. Meanwhile, in NIPA itself, there is a work unit that is responsible for organizing language training, and this is the work unit where we are working right now. It is the Language Training Center of the National Institute of Public Administration. And the duty of the Language Training Center is mentioned or stated in the National Institute of Public Administration Regulation number 11, year 2020. And the language training that we are conducting here is called English Communication Skills for Civil Servants. And it is also usually called ECSCS. And this ECSCS covers many kinds of training, from English for public speaking, English for academic writing, up to English for office and social communication. And the participants who usually join this program are all adult learners, so they are civil servants who holds either functional or structural positions. So they can choose which training that they need. And here, after NIPA issued the regulation number 8, year 2018, about guidelines on organizing competency development of civil servants through e-learning, the Language Training Center conducted the first online training in 2019. So it was before the pandemic. At that time, we used blended learning. So the participants should join asynchronous session using the learning platform provided by our institution. And some other days, they should join offline session or face-to-face session in the classroom. However, when the COVID-19 outbreak occurred, we had to change the methodology. So the face-to-face session was replaced by a virtual session using Zoom application. And for our service maintenance and improvement, the staff from administration division always distribute an evaluation form created using Google Form at the end of each session. As I observed so far, the evaluation form focuses on the training and the classroom management and organization in general. It has not focused on other important aspects such as learning materials, atmosphere or learning environment, and also interaction. That is why this study was conducted. because we would like to know what the participants think about the service that we provide. And the research question of this study is, to what extent do the participants perceive the English online training in terms of learning materials, classroom or learning environment, and also interaction? We have read some previous studies about adult learners. For example, the studies conducted by Knightley, Malley, Zen, and Share. However, their studies are different from ours in a way that they focus on different aspects, even though perhaps when examining the aspects that they consider important, they might also find minor findings about interaction, about learning materials, but these were not the major findings study. And we have also studied the theories about learning materials, about what are considered as good learning materials. And we also have read why creating a positive classroom atmosphere is vital, because it doesn't matter how old these learners are, they all need a positive classroom atmosphere so that it can boost their performance. And the last but not least is interaction. Interaction is also considered important because it is related to what Swain mentioned, that input only will not be enough. It will not be useful because the learners need the language to communicate. If there aren't any interaction, they will not be able to practice the language in real communication. So I have explained the first part of this presentation. The next part will be explained by Mr. Pram.
Thank you, Ms. Sastri. In this section, we will discuss and present the findings related to the research questions, which is, to what extent do the participants perceive the English online training program? The discussions is shown through the interpretation of the results from the tables elaborated with the findings from open and closed questionnaires. The results of the study were obtained from randomly 40 participants who joined in the English Communication Skills for Civil Service Training Program. Before we jump to the discussions, we would like to underline first here, in this study, we use the definition of perception as the process of selecting, organizing, and interpreting sensations into a meaningful and coherent pictures of the words. The first part of our discussions is related with the participants' perceptions on learning materials. As you can see in figure 1, it is showed that most participants, 67.5%, agreed that the learning materials provided new vocabulary and helped them master it well. Then 57.5% of the participants agreed that the learning materials helped them to use the vocabulary and context. They also agreed that the learning materials helped them apply grammar and expressions in context. It is related with the Tomlinson 1998 about the learning materials. He stated that learning materials should be relevant and useful. The materials should be able to draw learners' attention to the language features that they will be used. Of course, with enough opportunities to use the language through meaningful interactions to achieve the desired communicative purposes. The second discussion that we would like to present here is related with the participants' perceptions on atmosphere or the learning environments. The second aspect discussed in the study was the learning environment that is related with how participants receive the interactions in context of the environment surrounded their teaching and learning process. 3/4 of the participants posted that the learning environment was conducive. This data also revealed that in terms of motivations, most participants found that online learning was motivating. Meanwhile, 56.5% of them agreed that the communication between the participants and the facilitator was good, and there were not any difficulties in the process. In addition, 55% of them shared the same thought about peer communications. In terms of language skill mastery, the learning environment received positive feedback from participants and became one of the significant factors compared to other factors mentioned before. 56.1% strongly agreed, and 41.5% of them agreed that the virtual learning environment helped them learn language skills. The last point of our discussions will be related with the participants' perceptions on online learning interactions. As we all know, adult learners are aware of why and what they need to learn. It means if they decide to join in certain online training, they know what their needs are, and they have a certain goal to achieve. Harmer, 2007, stated that adult learners have a lot of life experience that affects the learning process, and they really understand the reasons for learning something, including in this context learning the language training program. Here, learning English will be meaningless if the language is not put in context, because it will not enable participants to be able to speak properly according to the learning context. This is also supported by the answer on the response from the most of the participants. Most of them, more than 63%, argued that facilitators stimulated the learning process with English language. It means that English language was used as the medium of instructions. Participants revealed that comprehensible input from facilitators, 95%, will open the doors for discussions and provide positive opportunity for colleagues to give input as well. Participants believe that input from colleagues will also be beneficial. 87% because it was closely related with context, and they can share the same challenge as other participants. The participants also strongly agreed, 63%, and agree, 36%, that facilitators design the learning materials in such a way that it promoted and supported interactions in which the participants could practice the language with their classmates and obtain feedback from both teachers or facilitators and all the participants. So what can we conclude about this study? The conclusion of the study was conducted because first of all, the importance of the regular evaluation forms that the language training centers use in every training is not focused on those three aspects. They really rarely focusing on learning materials, atmosphere, and interactions. Most of the cases is more focusing on classroom management. These findings in general is covered in three main points. First, The participants agreed to a great extent that the explanations on the model was easy to understand and helped them to apply vocabularies and expression in context. And for the second main point, the participants also agreed to a great extent that the facilitators were able to create such a conducive classroom atmosphere, and it will motivate the participant to learn English. The participants, on the other hand, were also glad that all participants support one another. And for the last point, the participants agreed to a great extent as well that the tutors, facilitators, did not dominate the class, but on the contrary, gave equal attention to the class as a whole and to each participant. The tutors also gave clear instruction and constructive feedback and gave a chance for each person in the class to give feedback whenever necessary. The finding of this research will be useful in the future, we hope, especially for facilitators, since they are the ones who are responsible for conducting the learning process from the beginning until the end of the class. Those also apply that tutors or facilitators should always upgrade their skills continuously in order to be able to provide learning materials that have a great quality and to always be able to create conducive, positive learning environments in any classes. It is also important for the tutors to keep in mind that giving the participant enough opportunities to use the language is crucial. How they can put it into practice by designing various communicative activities. It is because input will not work that well without enough opportunities to interact with one another. We believe that interaction is the heart of communications, and we also believe that interaction is the heart of the teaching and learning process. It is also hoped that this study is not only useful and helpful for the writers, Ms. Sastri and I, but also for other people who also teach adult learners and who would like to improve their teaching process. I think that's all of our presentations. For all the committees, all the participants, all the presenters in this IELA International Conference. It is a great pleasure and honors to have this precious opportunity. We would like to say thank you very much and see you on the next round. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Shalom, salam sejahtera untuk kita semuanya.